the one that just retired.
Got it.
I put my screen all the way up. You'll see the whole room with all my kids.
No, we're good.
Okay, good.
Don't forget to go on mute during this meeting, John, because in all the other meetings you stay on and we joke about all the things that we're hearing.
On that note, I'm going to mute myself and not talk to you for the rest of the evening. Goodbye.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to our facilities meeting for January 15th, 2026. Bienvenidos a todos a nuestra junta de la Comité de Facilidades en este día del 15 de enero. Mr. Hollis, can you take roll call to establish quorum?
Yes, Chair. On the roll call for the Facilities Committee regular meeting for January 15, 2026, Director Barry.
Present.
Director Thompson.
Present.
Chair Bashley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. So I just want to remind speakers, if you would like to speak, please submit a comment card. They're located right next to the door. Si eres una persona que quiere tener comentarios públicos, por favor, llena una de las tarjetas que están allá cerca de la puerta y dale al señor que está aquí. Are there any modifications to the agenda that folks would like to make? Director Barry?
Recommendation to presentation and discussion regarding Garfield to the top of the agenda.
Okay. So that is item F225-1678 to the top, to the first item of the agenda.
Yes.
That's fine with me. Any other modifications to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Great. Let's move to just really quickly do the adoption of the minutes from the last board meeting of this committee. So that's D1 26-0010. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I motion to adopt the minutes from the meeting in November, on November 20th, 2025.
Second.
Wonderful. Can we take a vote on that agenda item, Mr. Hollis?
One moment, we do have a public speaker for this item, Sasada Olagbala.
Mrs. Sada, go ahead.
How much time would you like to allot for public
Let's
comment?
do 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So the agendized items on that particular date had a presentation on deferred maintenance. And in that presentation, the subject matter was drinking waters, issues, plumbing. And you have in your minutes, only a discussion was had and you had no recommendations. Based on the agenda of last night, where you had a reduction of services to McClyman and other schools related to plumbing and ventilation, why was that subject matter not brought up at the maintenance deferred meeting? It'd be appropriate when you are having subjects titled like deferred maintenance or other subjects, if impactful situations related to not reductions or lack of services are going to be coming up, that should be a part of the discussion. As it relates to the renaming of the school, you had no date specific. My recommendation is that when you have subjects that come up related to any item, that a date for which the item will be implemented will be a part of the discussion at the meeting. Because no date specific means you don't know when that's going to happen. Lastly, the facilities master plan. You had that it was, I'm concerned because you have a member of your body who continues to bring up the fact that that master plan is overdue. It's past the date when it was supposed to be presented. And I wish for the public and for others this would be made clear. And if it is overdue, some discussion on why and accountability for why if necessary. The last thing is the demolition issue. It is unacceptable that the issue related to bunch demolition has gone on for this long period of time with the unsafe circumstances of toxic substances being in the community undealt with.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, did you have just comments around some of those public comments that were made?
Which components? Because there's multiple.
I think the deferred maintenance one is the most kind of pressing for my.
So one of the items that was on the board agenda last night that the board approved on consent was there are multiple ways in which the district is working to support the infrastructure within the plumbing systems in the district. One of those was the CalShape grant that the district received several years ago from the state of California to replace toilets, sinks of that nature across the district. And what you saw last night was a reduction in scope because those are included within the scope of work of the other projects. So for example, Ralph Bunch was listed as one of the campuses. It has since been demolished. McClymonds is a project that is currently has within its scope of work that's sitting at the DSA right now is replacement of all the plumbing fixtures, so it would be redundant. You would essentially be installing new toilets and then ripping them out like within a couple of months. So essentially that's what you saw. It was a reduction in terms of the overall scope for the CalShape grant, and it had no impact on the McClymonds project or Ralph Bunch or the other schools located. I think the other one was Roosevelt, which is currently in active construction as well. So that was why you saw the reduction of scope there. Was there another item that you wanted?
Okay. Any board colleagues, any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay. Let's go ahead and take a vote on the minutes from the last board meeting.
Yes, Chair.
this
And
committee.
if I may, if I can ask Gregory Chambers and Maria Ramos to come to this desk over here to talk with you about your speaker card.
Senora Maria Ramos, and then what was the second name? Gregory Chambers. If you can come back to speak with them about the card. Thank you.
So with that, on the motion to approve the November 20th, 2025 Facilities Committee meeting minutes, Director Barry, 1 second.
Yes.
Director Thompson,
Yes.
Chair Batchelor.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you so much. And now we will move to E, which is the adoption of the general consent. There is nothing on general consent at this moment. So we'll move on to F, which is unfinished business. And we had moved up F2 25-1678. So we'll be taking that item next. So el próximo presentación que vamos a hacer es F2 25-1678, que es la conversación de Garfield. Vamos a hacer esa presentación próxima. Mr. Thomas, go ahead.
All right. Good evening. Preston Thomas, the Chief Systems and Services Officer. We're bringing back this item to the Facilities Committee, and as you can see, there's a pretty large contingent from the Garfield community that's here with us tonight. One of the things that we have been actively working with the community around the Garfield project, and we're here to provide some updates to the Facilities Committee before another item would come next month around a proposed change around the funding and allocation and scope of the project. And so this is an opportunity to update you on where we are in the overall process. And so please feel free to stop throughout and ask questions, and maybe after the presentation we can go to public comment. Okay. So
Just really quickly, let me translate that. So vamos a hacer la presentación primero y después vamos a hacer comentos durante la presentación de nosotros, si tenemos preguntas. Y después de la presentación vamos a tener comentarios públicos. So I just am reiterating in Spanish that we will have the presentation, we'll have board comments throughout, and then we will go to public comment before, after that, so that we can continue the presentation. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
Yep, great, thank you. And also, I do want to share that, like, we have had tremendous turnout at all of our Garfield community engagements, and we've had several around this topic, so they're very well informed around some of the issues that we're going to be talking about tonight. So the initial plan for Garfield, it was significantly under budget, and the facilities committee and the board made a recommendation to increase the budget. And I just want to start where we're at right now. The current budget is $70.7 million. And as we talked about in June, there were some pretty significant challenges in the building. And if you look at the diagram here, there were significant structural issues with the building based on the style and time of the building for being a single-story concrete loaded shear walls, that the cost for that was going to be incredibly, at this point it was like 25 million, and there was a potential for continuing to escalate that cost based on unknown factors within it when we went into the walls and did some of the early testing. So that was one of the pieces. There was a significant cost around the temporary housing that was at that time $12.5 million. And so if you take the structural costs of the building and you took the temporary housing that was proposed for the site, it would encompass the entire construction budget. So essentially what the project would have been essentially just fixing the structural issues, and the school would have remained the way it currently is without the things that we've been talking about in the facilities master plan. You would not have improved the educational adequacy inside the building. You wouldn't have had some of the upgrades in terms of like Title 24, in terms of some of the energy efficiency items. So we've been working with the community, and we've also been working with other outside organizations around reframing the way that we're doing this project. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where we sit in that tonight and have shared that with the community. Do you want me to pause and, I think Ray is online to translate, or?
Oh, for translation.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
can, or I think you're translating a little bit. There you go.
Yeah. ¿Personas necesitan más interpretación que podemos tener aquí en el cuarto, o quisieran interpretación después de cada slide que tenemos? I'm asking if there's enough interpretation in the room, or if we need more interpretation to be added. See? After that slide. Okay. If you can, the interpreter that is in our Zoom room, if you can go ahead and interpret a little, just a summary of the two slides.
I think, is Ray promoted?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we
can
can.
now. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, great. And so, lo que está diciendo aquí es del proyecto que estábamos pensando de hacer antes, con el propósito que teníamos antes, tratando de ver a cuánto iba a costar para mover los estudiantes y para tenerlos en un lado, pues sí, entre que se hace el nuevo edificio y otros costos, no íbamos a poder hacer mucho para ayudar el programa de Garfield. Así que eso es una de las razones que hemos decidido tratar de agarrar más propósito para poder ayudar todo el programa de Garfield.
Thank you. Okay. Two other pieces. We talked a little bit about the ed specs, and we talked about there were a lot of compromises where it would not met the recommended sizes for classrooms. The renovated library would not meet the standards for current modern standards. So there were a lot of compromises across the system, and so we're here to kind of frame with you where we are around the budget and potential next steps that we would be moving forward. So, and I'll pause right there and then
Ya, básicamente, con el propósito que teníamos, no íbamos, teníamos mucho más problemas para asegurar que todos los espacios educativos estén al nivel del estándar que necesitan estar. Así que eso iba a costar más.
Okay, so in terms of where we sit on the budget, I'm going to provide a couple of framings around how we've been thinking about this project. Number one, in terms of reimagining what this project could look like, we didn't want it to impact other bond funds and Measure Y. And so we actively were working with partners to try to increase the funding for the project to change the type of project that it would be from a modernization to a rebuild of the campus to address the structural issues. And so it would require all the current allocation to the bond, from the bond program for this project. And so in that, we were looking with one of the designs of this building itself was it did not have enough space for the expansion of TK, and it did not have enough expansion for pre-K classrooms within the facility itself. And so when we were looking at partnerships with the city and other dollars that were out there, we worked with Oakland Children's Initiative, and Oakland Children's Initiative has committed $18 million to the project to expand the budget so that we can include an early childhood center on the campus. So to run through what that would mean is it would mean you would get 3 preschool classrooms, a parent resource center. You would also get 4 TK classrooms as well. So it would expand. Currently, the school has 1 preschool class and 1 TK class, and it would expand that to being a full complement. So you could come to Garfield, you could attend from preschool and go all the way up to 5th grade. So you would have essentially 7 years on that campus. I'll pause for translation on that.
Una de las cosas que estamos viendo es que queríamos tener, sabíamos que necesitábamos más dinero para asegurar el dinero necesario para este nuevo plan. Y una de las cosas que queríamos asegurar es que en buscando este nuevo plan no iba a afectar el bono y no iba a afectar otros proyectos en Oakland. Así que una de las cosas que pudimos hacer es que tenemos una asociación con un grupo que nos está dando dinero para educación temprana, básicamente. Así que va a expandir los números de TK y kindergarten y va a incluir salones de preschool, que va a asegurar que nuestros estudiantes puedan quedarse en Garfield de 7 años, de preschool hasta el 5º grado.
Great. Thank you, Ray.
Yeah.
So in terms of where we sit now, if you add that, so when we gave you a construction budget of $72 million to consider the entire project, it is now, we now have a $14.8 million gap that would build you to a full rebuild of the school. And so what that means is that the total budget for the project the construction budget would go up to $75 million with a total project cost of $103.5. So I'm going to say those numbers again. The construction budget, if you look at, and this is not in the presentation, I'm just providing a verbal update around it. The total construction budget for the project would now go all the way up to $75 million. It was at 56.7, so it would go to 75 million. You have 18 million more committed from OCI, so that you can add 18 million onto the project. Currently, the estimated project total would be 103.5 million for the whole project. That includes all the studies, all the architectural fees, all the soft costs. And so the remaining gap would be $14.8 million after OCI. And so that is when we come back to the next facilities committee meeting, we're reviewing budgets and continuing to look at the different fees and different fee structures out there to come up with a recommendation around that gap to go to a full rebuild.
What's the interpretation? And then we can, Director Thompson has a question.
Great.
Así que el presupuesto de la construcción era 72 millones. Básicamente necesitábamos mucho más. El programa de educación temprana nos ha dado 18 millones. Así que necesitamos, para tener lo que necesitamos tener para hacer este nuevo plan una realidad, necesitamos 14.8 millones de dólares. Y eso es lo que vamos a estar investigando, a dónde va a venir ese dinero.
And just
Director Thompson.
one more slide. So last time we had presented to you all like potential options to how the school would end up looking. And it's not the best picture. The next time you see it, you'll see a full rendering of it. That upper picture at the top here is the way that the building would be structured. So that you would have like an H-shaped building with the first floor being dedicated to pre-K, TK, and K, with little yards dedicated to those age groups. And then the second floor in the building would be upper grade levels for the upper grades at Garfield. And so the upper design is the design that we're talking about now. And at the next time, you'll see full renderings of all the buildings. And the first time that we'll show that is also at CBOC as well. So
Dr.
now
Thompson.
questions.
First question, when this construction project was talked about or devised or birthed, was there a contingency fund also set aside in order to address some of the needs?
I think one of the, and I'll get to your question, I just want to preface it with one thing. I think one of the things that we've been talking about here over the last year or so is really the intensive need to do deeper planning early in projects. And this would be an example of one of those projects where the contingency, there was a contingency within it, but some of the structural upgrades and some of the costs, the increased costs of portables far exceeded the contingency was within the project. So yes, there was a contingency, but the increase in costs based on escalation, based on some of the site issues, and the value that the district would get for the property far exceeded the contingency. So those numbers that I just discussed would include a contingency as well. So there would be a contingency within the 103 million and the construction costs as well.
Director Barry.
The deeper sort of research or review that you just referred to, is that something like doing a feasibility study in advance, or what kind of activity which you have done?
That's a great question. I think one of the risks that the district has had in its master planning process is that, and we've talked about this as being, they had fixed costs that were provided. So the number when you did the facilities master plan gave you a number, right? The new master plan is going to adjust every year based on escalation and cost. So one of the big problems with the Garfield project was that number was determined in 2018, and then you had 5 years worth of escalation. And so that was still the board adopted number, and that has been, and you've been playing from behind with all of your projects. This is why we had to increase the budget for McClymans. This is why we had to increase the budget for Roosevelt, all the way down the line. And so this is because Garfield is the last of those 5 major projects coming. That is what's driving the impact of that. And so this number that we're giving is significantly better because you have the contractor doing deep investigations at the site, working closely with the architect to come up with your best costing possible. So that number is a very strong number, whereas early on in the process it was very weak and also flavored by some of the issues that emerged around just not having a dynamic master plan. Does that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Ray, would you be able to interpret that?
I could try to interpret some of it.
Summarize.
That was a lot of conversation. Así que lo que está diciendo es que si había un plan de contingencia, se dice, que cubriría los diferentes costos ahorita, y les está explicando que sí teníamos un plan de eso, pero el proyecto ha cambiado mucho, así que se necesitan asegurar más costos. Es básicamente una de las cosas más grandes que platicaron.
Continue.
That is all.
That is all?
Yeah, that's generally in terms of how we see this is for us to have a conversation and a discussion with the community here. We would then be bringing the initial proposal to the CBOC in February so that the CBOC gets to see the design and gets to weigh in on the project. And then we would bring it back to the Facilities Committee in February it would be a voting item at that time around potentially restructuring the way that the project is moving forward.
Sounds good. Board colleagues, I'd love to hear from the community since they've been here for a minute. Does that sound good to y'all? All right. We'll go ahead and vamos a escuchar de la comunidad ahora para comentos públicos. Mr. Hollis, can you let us know first how many public comment cards you have?
6.
6. Great. We'll do 2 minutes each of those 6 cards. So tienes 6 cartas de comento y vamos a hacer 2 minutos cada comento. Can you read the first 3 and then the second 3?
First 3 are Asada Olakbala, Jonathan Valares, and Tandia Jones. Tandia Jones.
So I go to the meetings of the Oakland's Children's Initiative. So the last meeting was 12/17 of 2025, and the meetings of July and September were canceled. I pulled up the agenda because I don't remember any discussion about money being allocated in any form. At that meeting, they just had some presentations. So when did the Children's Initiative Commission approve $18 million? So I know in the city of Oakland, we're having tremendous financial challenges with Head Start. And the discussion is, can we look at the Children's Initiative to do some support with Trump cutting so much to support Head Start? So, you know I don't trust this. So if you have guaranteed $18 million, when did it become guaranteed? Because it's unfair to these parents to speak about money that is not officially available. The other thing is having to deal with the same thing we dealt with at McClymonds, where you are putting a school in a position where you have to go outside of the funding source that you have, Measure B, J, and Y, to support projects. That's what you tried to make us do. I don't think you have to do that. I think if you really concentrate, like on this issue coming up with the demolition of the building and the feasibility, that's $700,000, and concentrate on priorities, because y'all don't concentrate on priorities, you concentrate on your favorite projects that are not high priorities. So do not put these people in the position you put us in at McClymonds, saying things that are not true and giving them false hope.
Thank you. We have 2 other speakers.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Valladares. I'm the director of the after-school program at Garfield. I've been at Garfield since 2009 working in the after-school capacity. And I'm just really here to advocate to make sure that we get secure the rest of the funding to make the whole project go through of building a new building. Just honestly, since I started there, when I walked in through that building, everything pretty much looks the same. And as the director, I have to be very cautious of just pretty much making sure that everybody is safe. And I can honestly say in these past, at least most of the time, to be honest, there's always something that is wrong with the building. I would say as a director, I'm being more aware of like constant plumbing issues that we're having. We can't use these bathrooms. We can't use those bathrooms because of it's flooded. It's clogged. Someone has to come in. They're out for a few days. And then another thing is just the structure of the building is just pretty old. We had a really big scare last year where part of the doorway, it's a big giant beam, fell down as we're having dismissal. And it almost hit a first grade student. If it would have hit him, he would have been in the hospital. It would have, because that thing was heavy. It took me and someone else to lift it up and put it to where it was. So it's just things like that. And then constantly within the classrooms that we use, there's no air conditioning. And when it comes to the fall and the summer, these students are in it feels like 100-degree classrooms, not being able to concentrate, not being comfortable. And that's one of the things that I focus on is making sure everyone is safe. So it's just been constant things like that. You walk into the cafeteria and then you feel part of the floor go down, you know? And these aren't things that just like a remodelization. It's just past that since this building is so old. It's been there forever. And we tried to patch things, but it didn't work. It's too far gone where it just needs a whole new building that I think the community deserves as well too, because we have families that have been there for generations. People that went to Garfield 35 years ago and like, oh my gosh, this looks exactly the same as when I left. So I think it is time that we secure the rest of the funding to really make sure that it is safe and it accommodates our families that deserve it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Yeah, do you want
We'll
Ray
do
to
all
translate?
public comment.
Okay,
and then, yeah.
but do you want Ray to translate or?
No,
okay.
she's translating.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Tandia Jones. I'm a parent here at Garfield. Well, not here, but at Garfield Elementary. Garfield is not just a school for my family. It's been a part of our history. My grandmother used to teach there. Today is 90 years old, and she still can remember like where the classroom's at and the bathroom. So that says a lot. My mother's, my aunts, and cousins all attend here. Today, families like mine. Sorry, my screen went out.
Take your time.
Okay. Today, family like mine continue to walk through the same doors, trusting that the school will provide a safe, supportive environment where the children can learn and grow for the generations. Rebuilding the school is not just about the facility. It's about investment in our children's future and a commitment to honor the legacy of the community. Our students deserve a modern, safe, and inspiring learning environment that reflects their worth, potential, and dreams. This investment will also help beautify the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have 3 other public comments.
Yes, Chair. That's Gregory Chambers, Dan Schmitz, and Maria Ramos.
Come on up, everybody.
Hi, my name is Gregory Chambers. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Garfield Elementary. I work with the ABAC program back there. I love the school that I work at, and I would really appreciate it if we looked at the funds and allocated them to creating a whole new environment for our students. I believe the school is a staple of the neighborhood. We do not just teach in that area, we do community events, and as Mr. Jonathan has said, the same school that he came into, it hasn't changed a bit. For me personally, I have worked in classrooms that feel like they're over 100 degrees, and I feel like it's not too much to ask for air conditioning and other things that we can provide for our students so that way they can ensure they have a proper learning environment, but also an environment where they feel comfortable. We don't know the situations that these students have at home, so they need a place where they can come and they can feel comfortable. Our cafeterias, other areas of the school all need to be ramped up. It's just, we've reached a point where we feel as though the teachers deserve better, the students deserve better, and most of all, the families that we provide these services to deserve better, as well as our Family Resource Center. Ms. Takita back there, she provides so much for our students, and I feel that we need to make sure that we ensure an area where when parents walk on this campus, they can be proud of where their children are going. And as it was talked about too with the preschool areas as well, I'm a former preschool teacher, and that is where we start the education process. And if we only have one area for that, that's not okay. We need to have multiple areas for these students to be able to start their process at Garfield, become Garfield families, and spend those 7 great years. So I'm just hoping with what I say and what everybody else says here today that we can get those funds allocated for a whole new building. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Schmitz. I'm a neighbor to Garfield School and a volunteer at Garfield School.
Thank
you. You're welcome. And I love Garfield School. Garfield School is a great place, but I'm coming at this from the perspective of a neighbor who has walked by that facility for years and has seen a derelict park that has never been rebuilt and a school that is falling apart. And now I volunteer at the school and I raise literally my own money to redo the school garden because there's no money for the school garden. And you know, it's funny, doing the school garden, there are 10 pipes that come to this garden. And nobody can figure out which pipe actually can deliver water to the garden. There's a water set up there, and nobody can manage to turn it on. So I literally drag a hose all the way from one end of the building to the other end of the school, 300 feet of hose, to make sure I can water the garden that's supposed to be for children's educational purposes. You know, and to me, that just speaks to how run down that school actually is. So I see a beautiful community. I see eBASI working so hard to make it a beautiful environment where families feel included and loved and nurtured. And I see teachers that are giving their all. And it just is amazing to me that the school is so run down. And so initially, I got to tell you, I was actually a little bit bummed when I saw that the new facility is going to sit right on top of the garden and the trees that I planted. But actually, I think it's a better plan overall. It does a better job addressing what 23rd Ave and the District 5 and District 2 kind of on the border are facing. I think it does a better job. And so I'm actually organizing more volunteer support to move those same trees and put them into the new nature area that they're developing. So I feel like you have people in the community that would love to see something happen there in that spot, who have been wanting something to happen for you, and I just hope that you give it the money it needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Sí, ¿cómo?
Sí, hola, buenas tardes. Yo soy la señora María Ramos. Soy padre líder de la escuela Garfield desde hace 25 años. Ahí mis hijos asistieron y ahora actualmente tengo 4 nietos en los grados de pre-kinder, otro que está en primer grado y 2 niñas que pertenecen a segundo y tercer grado. Me siento muy orgullosa porque ahora tengo una hija que asiste al programa de BASI. Actualmente es mentora con niños del grado de kinder. El saber que tendremos una escuela nueva me llena de orgullo porque nuestros niños merecen tener espacio y recursos donde se sientan a gusto para aprender mejor. Asimismo, nosotros padres tendremos más recursos en el Centro de Recursos Familiares y asimismo nos comprometemos a hacerles llegar comida, ropa, a la vez. Muchas gracias.
¿Lo tienes escrito?
Sí.
¿Me lo puedes dar? Voy a traducir para mis
Sí.
colegas. Interpretar, por favor. I'm going to go ahead and interpret what she has written. So, hi, my name is Maria Ramos. I'm a parent leader at the school Garfield after over 25 years. I have 4 kids that have gone to Garfield, and now I have 4 grandkids that are in the grades in first grade and pre-K, and others that are in other grades, and 2 girls that are in grades 2 and 3. And I feel really proud that the school is going to get a pre-K classroom, and that we're going to be able to assist with the pre-K program with ABASI. She's really excited that there's going to be a kinder classroom as well. She's happy that there's going to be a new school and that students are going to feel proud to be in that school. And she feels like as the community, they deserve to be supported in getting this new school site. As parents, we will also be able to support each other with resources for different families, such as clothes and food, and she really likes that idea as well in the new school site. Muchísimas gracias, señora. Okay. Board colleagues, any questions or comments? That was it for public comment, right? There's only 6?
Yes, all public commenters have been called.
Okay. Board colleagues?
I was just interested in that contingency.
Okay.
This relates to the earlier conversation we were having about the contingency. Just wondering if, Preston, you could speak to the potential for us to negotiate when we're working with contractors, like a ceiling on spending, such that if it exceeds that amount by a certain time, they'd be responsible or something.
No, it's a great question. And I think one of the things that I'm going to take it back a little bit because it gets into the contracting part of it. You saw some of the projects that were completed during the pandemic going significantly over because those were design, bid, build, where you design it, you bid, and then you're really the district needs to negotiate those change orders, and you've seen that go through and are coming through the board often. We are right now, all of the projects are either progressive design build or lease back. Those are 2 contracting methodologies that you can use with construction. The one advantage of those is that you create a guaranteed maximum price with the contractor after things come out of DSA. So at that point, the contractor is then bound to that dollar amount for the remainder of the project. And so that is the lever that the district has to hold them accountable to that price. And so one of the reasons why we've been holding our contingency and why we wouldn't recommend you go to the contingency for this project, because as you're going to go and get a guaranteed maximum price from a claimants after it comes out of DSA, that may change the current budget for that project, and you would use the contingency to do that. The same thing with CCPA, the same thing with MLA. So there is all of the projects that we're moving forward right now would do the thing that you're talking about after it comes out of DSA and you know the full cost.
Is that it, Dr. Berry? Okay. Primero quiero agradecer a la comunidad por estar aquí con nosotros y estar involucrada en lo que estaban haciendo en la escuela y para estar en este momento. So I just really want to thank the community for not only being here, but also really participating at the school site and in other places to provide community input. Me agradece tener parientes, personal y también personas que hacen el programa de After School y también vecinos estar involucrados en ese programa porque realmente nuestras escuelas son el centro de nuestra comunidad y ustedes son nuestra comunidad. So I really appreciate the parents and community members, the neighbors, the teachers, the after school providers, because our schools are really the center of our community and you guys are really showcasing that through this example. So I appreciate that. No voy a traducir esas 3 preguntas, pero les voy a decir. I'm not going to translate these 3 questions, but these are the questions that I have. So to the public comment earlier about the 18 million and how guaranteed is that from OCI, can you talk about the process that OCI went through, whether there was a letter or some sort of document that was issued to us so that we can know that we're not going to have to, potentially make some changes? I'll go ahead and just do my 3 questions.
Yep.
Then my follow-up question is, as much as we want to make these changes to the school site, one of the things I also want to make sure is that we're not disrupting children's education as we're doing these things. So what is our plan to support the school site in holding the school program as well as the after-school program, because that is also very important to our families. And then can you lay out just one more time, and I'll probably translate that in Spanish as well, just the timeline of like, when is the next thing, when is the following thing, so that we can make sure families understand that specific timeline for funding.
All really good questions. So let me talk a little bit about the funding, and this is why we're here as a discussion and we're not bringing it forward as an item. Anytime you're in conversation with other governmental agencies around exchanging funds, there's a process on that side. Oakland Children's Initiative is being administrated by First Five. And so we have had confirmation from both First Five and the the administrator over that the $18 million will be allocated to the project. So there definitely is some work, and I'll just name them, and this is what is the corner. Well, it's a really small picture. The corner of Garfield that the baseball diamond is on, there's a small sliver of the property that is actually city property. And so we are working with the city right now around how to navigate that. You could do it through a long-term lease. You could do it on an exchange. There are different ways that we're working with the city. So we're currently in partnership with the city, working out some of those details. That is why we will be bringing something back to the facilities committee once we're working through all the logistics around that. So that's the first question. The second question was around disruption to education. And we are doing right now at the Roosevelt Project, we do this a lot because our plots of land are very, very small within the city. So we are very attuned to doing construction while things are going on at the school site, right? And it does require, and this has been explained to the parents and the family, it does require some flexibility during the construction window. One of the good things about new construction is that it can go actually faster than a modernization because there's less surprises. You know what you're going and starting with. So the way this project would work is the students would be housed in Garfield, the current campus, and you wouldn't have to pay that $12.5 million for interim housing. You wouldn't have to bus children to another school site to, like we did with Glenview. They would stay on the campus and they would be able to be there and actually be able to watch the construction as it was moving forward. So that is one of the things that would happen. They would still have access to the playground. They would still have access to a lot of the different features. The campus would just lose the park where the grass area, that's where we would begin the construction, right? So as that progressed, after the construction of the new building happened, the school would move into the new building, and then we would begin demolishing the old building, ideally during the summer, but also on breaks and utilizing that time. And then it would be the construction of the parking lot for staff. So there is an advantage around, one of the things around drop-off at Garfield on 22nd, it can be really, really challenging. It would change staff parking, so staff is parking on the property itself, and allow for easier drop-off on non-busy streets to come to an entryway. And we'll show this in the design at the next time. So it would change that orientation, and that's when the soccer field and the park would get reestablished. We are in conversation with the city about how to negotiate the potential of utilizing it both for district function and city function, but that tends to be hard because we have heard from our school sites that they need supervision during times that it's open, or else things happen on the campus that make it a difficulty opening up. So we are in dialogue with the city around that as well right now. And then the third was overall timeline for funds. Timeline for funds and construction. So I just want to name, once we are confirmed with the funds and we get the 103.5 allocated to the project, we can then move forward on the final phase of moving into design development in construction documents that we would submit to the DSA, the Department of State Architect, right? And that would happen in the fall of next year, with construction happening in the next summer. So that's kind of the overall timeline. And so getting early approval now in February allows us to submit in the fall, in Q4 of this year, and then construction starting potentially before the end of that school year.
Director Thompson.
Mr. Could you please help me understand? And the reason why I'm asking is because I taught at Garfield. I used to teach there also. So what part? Yeah, I've been all around this city. What part of the field is actually owned by the city? Or how much of it? And my rationale for asking is because I'm just wondering about how much negotiation between OUSD and the city is going to have to take place in order to make sure that the construction takes place. Because I don't want parents to feel like, oh, well, we're not holding up to our bargain. So I'm just wondering how much field is there Is it the whole field or just a, I know you mentioned a sliver, but I'm not sure what a sliver means.
Can you put the, can you bring the presentation back up? I apologize.
No
It's a great question, and let me, while Mr. Hollis is bringing it up, it's the second to last slide, I believe. There are three general ways we can do this with the city. One, and what is often used is just you purchase it outright and you just pay for it, right? You can also do a property swap where you swap that property for another property somewhere in the city. And we have so many properties that are co-located. And then the third way is a long-term lease where they lease that area of the property. And the fourth option is not our preferred option, but it is an option, which will cost a little bit more, is you just shift the property. We just shift the building and go up one more story and then keep the city with their property at the front. Ideally, there's an increased cost for the district. And so I don't know if you can see it, but if the building looks like an H, it's the front of the H, and it's the little triangle in front that's along, oh yeah, oh wow, that's awesome. Yep, so to the right side, that it kind of is it's a triangle on the right side at that corner from corner to corner. That is the city's property. So you would see that the new multi-purpose room and the parent resource center would be kind of located on the city property. And so we have options. We could just shift it this way, right? And not utilize that, but that's probably not the best use. The city loses a park space, and that is the intended entryway for the school. We would, on the 1 Street side, you would have preschool's families drop off their child. The kinder and TK would be on the other side of the building, and first through fifth would come through the main entryway there. So those are the methodologies that we would use, and we would have to work those out with the city.
Thank you very much for that.
Pernita just texted me. It's 0.66 acres of property. If that helps, I don't know.
Okay, 0.66 acres.
0.66 acres.
We're talking about a little more than half an acre.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I just think it's so important for the conversation to take place so that the construction is not hindered at all. So has the conversation even begun with the city?
Absolutely. We've been in deep dialogue with the city around this. And I would just say that the one challenge for the city is, the city's budget, as you've heard, is also really significantly challenged. And they are trying to figure out how to invest in some of their parks and things of that nature. And so the way and I'm just being honest about the way the city park and rec department sees this as losing like a park, at least in the short term. And that's why, on the upper side of the campus, we would be installing a soccer field in that area. But I think the city in the short term sees it as a loss of a park space that hasn't truly been used post-pandemic, but that is one of the concerns that the city's looking to maximize its park spaces. And we're supportive of that in any way we can.
Director Barry.
Just one clarifying question. So the 14 million remaining, the memo says not no fiscal impact, but it's not being drawn from anything that affects any other project, but where is it coming from?
Yeah. I think the piece that we're looking at is, as you know, looking at the projections for developer fees that are coming in. When you have a portable replacement or you have an increase in expansion, you could look at developer fees. There's Fund 35 that is also available as a potential opportunity with reimbursements from the state. And so we're exploring other options. I think that there is also a series of grants around water remediation that could be added. So there's different strategies that we can use. There's the slide I would just reference in previous presentations that we've had around all of the funding structures and all the different pools. We're trying to create the funding stack that might have multiple different funding sources to close the $14.8 million gap.
Questions, board colleagues? Okay, so I think the timeline is super important for the funding piece, and you didn't quite get to it, but let me make sure that I'm clear, and then I will say that. No, it's fine. You said it, you were talking about mainly construction. I'm talking about like the request from parents of like, give us the funds to actually do the project. So if I heard you correct though, the reprioritization of Measure Y funds is gonna go to CBOC on February 9th. And then it'll come to us as the facilities committee on February 19th. If passed by this facilities committee, it will go to the board meeting either the 11th or 25th. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost. It wouldn't be on, were you talking about February 11th?
March.
Oh,
March 11th. Yes, I
it
should
could
have
be
articulated
agendized on
that.
February 25th, or it could be on March 11th.
Oh, I see.
And then if the board moved forward with it at that time, we would then continue forward on the construction documentation to submit to DSA and continue to work with the city on some of the permitting in those different areas that would need to get done in the fall.
Okay. I just want to, because I want to make sure that the community is clear, so I'm just going to translate that timeline. So, en la línea de tiempo que vamos a tener para los recursos que necesitan extra para este proyecto, primero va a ir a la comité de, que se llama CBOC, que es la comité de personas de la comunidad, que nos ayuda con construcción así. En 9 de febrero, ellos van a ver la primera vez. Y después va a venir a esta comité el 19 de febrero, y si pasamos en esta comité, puede ir a la mesa directiva el 25 de febrero, el 11 de marzo o el 25 de marzo. So, esos son los datos que necesitan saber para continuar a advocar para lo que necesitan para su proyecto. So those are just the dates that you all might want to think about and need to make sure that you're advocating for the project for your support. I think those are all my questions. Yeah, so there we go. Any other
And like
thoughts or
this
questions?
is not
Okay.
a voting item, it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
And I will say one final, do you mind, is that one of the things that it actually informs other decisions that you all have about the facilities master plan as comes forward. When we were talking about those transformational projects that can be the cornerstone in the community, this is one of those moments where you decide, we're investing in a long-term trajectory, because this is the facility for the next 50 years, and you heard some of the issues that the facility has currently. This is resetting the facility back to being brand new, right? And so I do want to add that there were some of the things that we heard from the community, and you heard some of them, but I wanted to add just a few that you missed. This would add a soccer field to that neighborhood, right, that could be used. It would add the current multi-purpose room. One of the issues that was not in the previous budget was actually there was requests to have like a gymnasium where it could be a multi-purpose room similar to what we did at Claremont, where it would have basketball and things indoors for rainy day. You cannot do that with the current building, but in the new building it would have a gymnasium inside the multi-purpose room, right? The project did, because we've heard it's a top priority, would add air conditioning to it in the modernization, but the district would have ended up paying significantly more because it wouldn't have had all the insulation, new windows, new roofs, all of those things to provide that climate controlled room. And so some of these things are considerations as you're thinking about whether or not future projects are either going to be a rebuild that becomes, or it can be a modernization. So I just wanted to name, since we are deep into the master plan, that will inform both reprioritization in potentially the contingency, but also future projects, that this is one of those moments where there have been additional requests and you have heard the condition of the building, and staff is looking forward, and the architects are online, but they'll be at the next meeting, is that, this project did not check off a lot of boxes that would have made it a quality project as a modernization, and that's why staff's recommendation would be to rebuild it.
And again, I just want to highlight the point of the Oakland Children's Initiative, I think is really hopeful. I think, again, figuring out our creative uses for all of those other resources and funds, I think is great. And however we can to Director Barry's points that she's made multiple times of like, how can we work together with the city to really transform our community spaces is going to be really key in getting those resources, and then also getting the negotiated agreements of using the spaces, I think is definitely geared towards that. Well, thanks again. Yeah, I will just lastly say, I want to thank again the community for coming out. If there's any questions about the timeline or kind of like where things are, feel free as the chair of this committee to reach out to me directly, and I can let you know. And if I don't know, I will find out. But yes, Director Thompson, go ahead.
Something just came to mind as you were talking. As we looked at the 3 Rs, I can see how this particular venture could actually bleed into facilitron use and then also the 3R use. So I know that just popped in my mind, and so I just wanted to say that I'm glad. Thank you, parents and family, for bringing this to our attention, because it does allow the juices to kind of flow a little bit, and I think about other ideas that can potentially be part of what we do.
Great. With that, there's no vote on this item as was stated, so we'll go ahead and move on to F1 25-2011. So no estamos votando en ese item, so ya vamos a ir a otra parte de nuestra agenda. So that is the Early Childhood Education Facilities Framework. I believe that is this presentation, Justin? That sounds good. Okay. Thank you so much. And if folks need to transition or would like to transition, please do so quietly so we can continue with our meeting. Si necesitan irse o transicionar a lo que necesitan hacer, por favor, si pueden hacerlo un poquito lentamente, por favor, para que podamos continuar nuestra junta.
I'm actually going to be I'll be at Mark's cluster. You have your whole family here.
Maestro, ya, Alejandra se fue porque estaban los niños
Yes,
inquietos.
I got
Maestro,
it. Yeah.
ella es hija de Ángel, de ellos. Él era maestro de tu papi. Salúdalo. Dile, hija. Sí. Ok, bye, maestro.
There's a whole bunch of
Preston, you wanted to say that into the microphone? All right. Our next item is F1 25-2011, Facilities Committee, Early Childhood Education Facilities Framework and Facilities Plan Management.
All right.
Mr. Thomas.
So I want to so this is a connection to some of the conversations that the board is having about the budget, and last night you had actually an enrollment conversation. So in working with Directora Batchelor and Chair Batchelor, we have been trying to align some of the initiatives so that particularly the ones that involve the facilities, you all have an opportunity here to kind of talk through what that might look like in terms of district-wide facilities. And so this is really around, and I want to just name, the governor made a move that has significantly helped the Oakland Unified School District by expanding TK. You saw last night that our enrollment is up again, but it is really largely driven by expanding it, adding an extra grade level to the district. And one of the things Mr. Betlock didn't say last night, I don't know if he said it exactly, but in spite of the decrease in newcomer population, like in the district and in the city of Oakland, we still are increasing our enrollment. And a lot of that is shifting from Previously, when our enrollment was stabilizing, it was stabilizing at the top with, so essentially newcomers coming into the upper middle school and high school. What you're seeing now is actually a shift to the bottom. That's significant because that is
A shift to our lowest grades.
to the lowest grades, right? To the foundation of where you start and enter into this district, because that is your future that is like kind of building through the system. And so one of the pieces is there are many schools across the city that do not, Oakland schools were designed small. Prior to the small schools movement and all that, the buildings were designed small because the district 100 years ago, you walked to school, right? And so different neighborhoods all across Oakland, the schools were designed smaller. In our current state, many of those schools, when the governor's proposal came forward, don't have the space to add an additional TK, right? They don't have the ability to add an additional pre-K. And so we thought this was a great opportunity to just walk through hubs in general and talk about how that might work across the city, because it is one of the line items to generate revenue by bringing more families into the district and connecting them to the system. One of the things that has been mentioned in the past, one of the changes in what we've seen in OUSD families is our percentage of the way that they figure out the early projections for kindergarten is based on how many births there are. And we used to get about 48 to 49% of the births 5 years later, right? That number is now up to 54%, right? So that is a shift in, if you get them in your system early and provide a quality experience for them, those families tend to stay with the district longer. And so that is kind of the rationale behind some of the proposals that we've heard at the board level around TK hubs. And so we're gonna walk through, from a facilities perspective, what that might look like and how you might determine sites that could be TK hubs. Okay. I'm gonna go through. So one of the pieces, and this is, there's actually a nexus here between all three committees. I will say that we're going to talk about the facilities and the vision around facilities, but also like early learning has a philosophy, and we wanted to include it here because that is probably something that is a discussion around at the Teaching and Learning Committee. But also the budget implications of moving to TK hubs is also something that Budget and Finance may consider. And so we're giving you one leg of the three-legged stool here, so you could talk about the facilities aspect, but there is a financial aspect to it, and there is also an educational programming element that Teaching and Learning would be a better place to talk about. So we have, what comprises our early learning program is we have California State preschools. That's kind of the numbers across the district. You have early childhood and special education programming that we do. And then you also have transitional kindergarten, right? We currently have 52 classes it's about 1,126 students. And we have this year, 25, 26, 59 classes and about 1328. So that just shows you kind of the growth. But we are in that phase where we're now fully we're fully implementing the universal TK. So like there's not going to be a new wave of kids coming through. It's really about how do you capture the students that are age eligible in the city and provide them a place that they're willing to go. So enrollment patterns. We have seen significant unmet transitional kindergarten demands in District 1 and 4. So in District 1, North Oakland, District 4, there are many families that are interested in TK, but we don't have them opting into any of the TK programming in the city right now. So they'd opt out of joining the district as opposed to joining a school somewhere else. In unfilled TK seats in District 6 and 7, where we have opened some TKs and they don't fill. And there's a lot more competition for community-based organizations that offer childcare. There's other programs in those neighborhoods as well. So the competitive landscape in some of those areas, particularly District 6 and 7, are a challenge there. And I think those are the two key areas. So this just kind of puts numbers to it. you could see that in districts where we have wait lists, in some of the areas where we have capacity, we can take a classroom that exists in that building and we can convert it into a TK classroom, right? So if we have an empty classroom, you can convert it to TK, you reconfigure the building, you don't need to build anything new. Garfield is one of those campuses where you don't have that capacity, and it's one of those opportunities that you have to move forward. Look at this. I think what's really important, this is actually birth rates, children aged 0 to 4, and where they're concentrated in the city of Oakland. That is your future of incoming students that we currently know about. And you could see that there are regions in North Oakland, there are regions in District 3, in West Oakland, that there are high number of births and high number of children 0 to 4. The presentation that you just saw, you see District 2 and District 5. There's a significant band of folks right on the boundary between District 2 and District 5 that are going to be sending their kids to school in Oakland Unified School District or other options in that area. I always think of where you see the dot on District 2 all the way down to District 7. There's about 20,000 children that live in that area that go to our school right now. It is the highest, most dense area of children that enter into our schools district along the 880 corridor right there. So you can see also the future of that along that corridor as well. And so I just want to name where the vast majority of our families are living.
I had just one question about this, because so the numbers here of wait lists, that is, and by district, that is a family wants to be in a school in District 1, not that that family lives in District 1.
That's correct. It is agnostic to like kind of the neighborhood where they're coming from. It's just a read of the wait list for families trying to get into schools in those areas.
Okay. Yes. I just asked about this slide.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
But yeah, if folks have questions about slides, Director Barry, go ahead. I didn't have a follow-up, but Director Thompson.
So on that, do we have that data though? So do we know where the demand for the 204 that are on the wait?
Yeah.
Where they're living?
You could see, yes, we can provide that information. This is what we currently have, but we know where they go. So for example, if you're on a wait list, let's pick the 204. We know where they live when they, generally when they apply, because in our enrollment system, you have to put your address in so we know where you live. Then we know who actually does join the system, because there are some on that wait list that will ultimately get into a different school somewhere and attend that school. We know where they are. We know when they don't get their first or second choice, they're very likely not to join the district in that TK year. And definitely, Mr. Betlock, if you want to have a follow-up on it, we can get you some of that data around family choice, because there are many, many complex factors that go into why families choose to go to certain schools. So,
Director Thompson, did you have a question on the slide?
One of my teacher had
Microphone.
for a minute, and this might not be the appropriate space to even ask this question, but when I look at different districts, I'm really, first of all, I'm struck by the disparity, number one. And then number two, I'm wondering, and maybe you've had this conversation, it'll help me because I don't know. I'm wondering if there's some uniformity between the early childhood development centers, because if there isn't, then it's speaking to something that some of the public speakers have mentioned about how there is discrimination in the different areas. And so do you know? It's going to help me if you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I can forge an answer that is incomplete, but gives you some of the variables that are at play, right? So first of all, there are so many factors into why people choose to where to send their child in terms of school, right? And so some of them, proximity to school is really important. That walking distance is a critical number that you should factor in, right? Others, it's the proximity to your place of work, because if you need to drop your children off on your way to work, necessarily the neighborhood school might not be the easiest place to drop off your child. It might be the campus, and there are many families that come into OUSD that work in the city of Oakland and get interdistrict transfers to come into our schools because of that proximity. The access, and this is where I think you heard last night, the expansion to be able to select after-school care is a huge driver to like whether or not you're going to be able to attend a particular school. The quality of the school is important. The facility is important, right? Like, so when you look at schools like, it's interesting to me when we talk about Sankofa and the Washington campus, right? That is a closed facility. It has been vacant for a long time. It is the exact same age of the Lockwood campus and the same age of the Hintel campus. The age and proximity, that building is of a vintage that is far beyond its life as a program. And I don't know, I probably need to do this because I've said this too many times, is that there was definitely a history in the city of Oakland where early childhood centers were built about 50, 60 years ago at a very high rate and placed down in different locations and weren't necessarily connected to the schools. So you have the Manzanita campus where you have Manzanita and you have a Manzanita Early Childhood Center. East Oakland Pride is a good example. The old Webster site, you not only have a state, you have the city-run program, a Head Start program, but you also have an early childhood center. All of them are very, very small in their design. 3 classrooms, 4 classrooms. Those efficiencies for a school district now are really hard. You have principals that move from 3 sites, right? So they're moving from site A to site B to site C because you can't afford to cover the administration and the support at that site with just 3 classrooms, right? So like, there are a lot of factors that are at play. This is where Oakland Children's Initiative has really supported the district to do. Highland, is getting some investments in that early childhood center that sits right across the street from Highland, the school. So there's a lot of complexity into why people are choosing neighborhoods. There's historical patterns. You see a lot of families that their children, I was just up at Oak, and probably we should say Oak at Howard, because there's a lot of families from East Oakland that they have a long history of sending their children to Howard. So there's a lot of variables and a lot of factors, and definitely affluence, socioeconomic factors, there's language factors, there's definitely racial bias in the way that families choose at times. So it's really complex. I'm trying to give you as complete of variables, but they're different in every corner of the neighborhood, and every part of Oakland has different dynamics and nuances to it. And the dynamics in Oakland around enrollment are shifting. The percentage, one of the things when we were looking into the North Oakland region, there's a lot of gentrification happening in District 1, but also it has some areas of deep poverty that still exist within North Oakland that people don't talk about. It is, when we're talking about kind of the location of Black families within the city of Oakland, it still is like the 4th highest percentage out of all census areas, right around Sankofa. So there's just the nature of Oakland and the overall diversity and kind of socioeconomic areas, it's just very complex to give you a simple answer to it. And does that kind of hit at the variables
Yeah,
you were asking about?
it does. Yeah, it does. And I appreciate that. That's probably something that I'm going to want to delve into deeper. But I think I'm going to, since I'm on teaching and learning, that's where I'm going to probably delve into a little deeper.
One more question, and I think it wasn't talked about too much, but it is informing some of our decision making. We have done surveying of families, through polling, to find out what variables, particularly post-pandemic, to understand what was important to families around messaging and what to attend to. And I think one of the really most important things coming out of the pandemic was overall safety, right? And so that is where kind of your facilities and the bond investments, those door entry systems and making sure that like campus were enclosed and doing a better job really has changed the nature. When we talked about the facilities master plan, that has dropped way down on the list. It was number one. Now it's the classroom comfort and heat and things like that. So you do see the way that you invest in facilities and playgrounds and things of that nature are changing the dynamic of what the families that are potentially going to attend OUSD are looking to. Yeah.
Director Barry. This conversation is just, aggravating is not a good word to use, but because my head hurts, I'm going to say aggravating. The urgency I see and I've spoken about for us to very quickly go through, and I don't mean to speed through the process, but to very quickly initiate a process that forces us to be decisive about a vision for the future of our system. Because I see several facilities strategy ideas listed in this document that without that overall vision, it could create a fragmented set of strategies and ideas, all of which cost money. And yeah, there's a lot of potential to waste money on sites that may not be part of our future in 20 years, or there's a lot of potential here because we do not know. And I feel like because of the budget development, because of the way that public education is shifting across the country, there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense to pay attention to this right now. And I'm just curious what your conversations are with the superintendent, others on SLT, about that broader vision against which you're making some of these decisions.
Wow, that is the $1 million question right there. I do think that sometimes and I'll give you a specific example, but I just want to say, like, one of the things that happens in Oakland, this is why I'm really enjoying like going through the master planning process, that is, is you're looking at the long-term arc for the district and what the future 20 years is going to look like, right? This Garfield conversation wasn't just and actually we had this conversation with those families when we met with Garfield last week. Like, some of the families that are sitting in this room are never going to be in the new building, right? Some of the people you even heard speak tonight aren't going to be in that building. But they were so passionate about it being a cornerstone for that neighborhood for the next 30 years. And you heard a neighbor, I'd never seen him come and talk about what that means to like him. So that is, I think, part of the dilemma is that, like, you need to have a long-term educational programming like conversation around what that arc is. One of the things that has come up in the master plan is when we plan for schools, we should also be planning for what the future academic program is happening at those schools as well. And this is one of the things that I really do feel great about the Garfield project, is the reason why, like, it is definitely the foundation, like, kind of thinking. Like, Sandra Aguilera, Dr. Aguilera and I have been working with, Killian, Jessica, to think about what is the right structure for a school to be one of those cornerstone properties that, like, kids are going to come to for the next 30 years. And I think the thing you want is stability, right? You want to be able to have your kids start in pre-K. And then that's why I mentioned earlier, and I think, Chair Batchelor, I don't know if I should call you chair, vice president, anyway, is that, like, this is one of those opportunities. The topic that we're talking about is, it does intersect all of them, right? Budget and finance. It does intersect with teaching and learning. It does intersect actually with charter committee. It does intersect with the facilities committee, right? Like, so, because that District 5, as you know, there's a large number of charter schools in that area. So I do think that we do need to, and when I say we, I mean you all. Like, I think the board needs to move forward around casting what that vision is. And I think there have been multiple attempts that have been really around consolidation of schools which is not necessarily what I hear you say. It's like, that might be part of that roadmap, but it includes a broader vision for what the future of the district is gonna look like for the next generation of scholars that are coming to the district. And it does mean that all of those four elements that, you know, if you think about it by committee structure, need to come together. And I would say that Oakland, every time I go and talk to other districts, they consider Oakland the unicorn. And the reason why it's a unicorn is that, like, the voters in Oakland are incredibly supportive for Oakland Unified in public schools, right? You have 3 parcel taxes, right? You have a bond program that has been renewed each year. You have philanthropy that comes into the city of Oakland. You have a lot of tailwinds to allow you to cast that vision. It's like, what are the trade-offs as you move down that path? And so I would agree that it needs to happen. This is in my corner in working with the chief academic officer. No, just like the last presentation you saw is part of that conversation. I don't know if that's a complete answer, but at least that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And this is like, I think, our first bite at the apple of trying to figure out how do we create spaces for our earliest learners. But I do think, like, we have to be thinking about, like, the whole trajectory of that student. And I think your comment at CBOC that I was scoping in on the other day also was really poignant and kind of hit at something that I hadn't thought of, which is the bond hasn't invested in any of our CTE spaces for our high school students. Let me just say that again. The bond has never gone towards CTE spaces for our students. Yet that is a huge initiative that we have as a district. We have pathway programs specifically for that, yet we have not, put forth dollars to those spaces. So I think in creating that vision that I have heard, many times folks throughout say, even at CBOC, right, of like, what is the vision of this district? I think thinking about that to me is like creating those educational spaces for our students to be able to thrive throughout their grade spans, and having, like, utilizing all the dollars that we can in different ways, whether it's the developer fees, because it is going to be a project that's is going to increase the number of students, or it is a deep investment in CTE. And I also want to just reiterate that this presentation also comes out of what we voted on, which is scenario 3. In scenario 3, we do talk about TK hubs. So that's another reason why we're having this conversation today, so that we can start thinking about and formulating what that vision is. Because to Preston's point, I think staff can support us with it, but it's really up to us as a board to say, like, yes, that is our vision. Now committees and staff move forward with that vision. You were on slide 13, yeah.
This is actually just a slide that I've shown in the master plan, but it's interesting when you look at, and this will change as the data was coming in around the master plan, but this shows you the dark green is permanent facilities. Like, these are the brick and mortar, what you think about when you go and you look at, Oakland Tech and you see the front of the building. That is the permanent program. But then there's a whole bunch of portables behind it, right? Like, so the portable is in light green areas, program usage and capacity, and then the 24-25 enrollment. So you can see that in 2000, when, 1995 to 2001, that was the height of enrollment in the city of Oakland. And you could see that all of that kind of light green infrastructure is all the infrastructure of portables that are across our district. In District 1, we still do not have enough capacity within the traditional permanent programs to place all of our students, right? Whereas, at the time that we were in the master plan, District 6 was like kind of right at it, but that doesn't mean that it's at every single school. Here is like just the facilities condition of our ECE buildings. And so you could see that the Lockwood, Hintilcoo, Lockwood, Fruitvale, Garfield, like some of these areas, like that's a tie-in are like some of the poorest quality facilities in the district where we're putting our youngest children, right? So like there is this like kind of re-envisioning and reimagining like what early childhood looks like, particularly from a facilities standpoint. We do have an example of this. I mean, Laurel is an example of now a TK through 5 program that has an amazing early childhood that did come out of this bond, right? That is open and has a capacity of 108, but it is integrated into the Laurel campus. We have been doing a lot of facilities upgrades at ECE sites, and a lot of that has been come as part of OCI and funding, plus your deferred maintenance program. I'm just gonna move. Okay, so let's go to, this is the heart of this conversation. So it is a proven model. I just want to say, like, this isn't like some, half-baked idea. We actually did this at Kaiser. After the closure of Kaiser, it has opened as an ECE hub, and it has been exceeding projections for the past 3 years, and that's one of those sites that you saw had a wait list, right? You invest in that. It does create an efficient use of space. It activates unused classrooms. So you would be placing a hub for other schools, I just want to be clear about that, at a campus. And that means that you have children that will be there for 1 year and then move into their kindergarten program at their school. It does, hubs draw in from multiple neighborhoods, and it does give families more choice. You can align hubs where and we have done this in the enrollment, you can go to your neighborhood school, right? Go back to your neighborhood school, or if you love the place where the hub is, you can decide to continue to send your child to that school. And that might be a family that has 2 kids that are, one's in preschool, one's in TK, one's in kinder, or, that you want to, it's just easier to stay at that school. Operational strength, and this is something that is probably, it can provide collaboration with teachers. Instead of just having one standalone TK class, you can have 5, 6 TK classes together. So there's a high level of collaboration and sharing best practices across the classrooms at that hub. And then, like I said, I mentioned this before, we have a 4% increase on the progression rates from K. So like TK families stick in OUSD longer than they had historically without TK. And so I think, okay, so this is a overall map of where we have, and I did not put a location. I just want to be clear, I didn't name a campus as the TK campus, right? Like who the hub would be, because I didn't want to, I just am telling you where you don't have enough capacity to support TK expansion. So if you look at Hillcrest, Chabot, the column on the left is what their potential, the TK enrollment is, and how many students go into their kindergarten. And the TK potential is the number of students that can't go into TK on that campus or in a hub currently for that site. So you can see that if you look at the 2 schools, Hillcrest and Chabot, that the Group 1 TK hub could support an additional 77 students. So that's 3 additional classrooms of TK that are currently not enrolling in OUSD. The Group 2 TK hub is in North Oakland, that Peralta has 24 students. Their K holds 47, so there's 23 families that don't get TK experience. As you go through Redwood Heights, Montclair, Thornhill, you can see that each one of them has a TK class dedicated to it, but the number of K seats that are included within that school mean that 136 families do not have access to TK programming that's associated with their school. Group 3 TK hub is for Crocker, Glenview, and Sequoia. You can see that there's 148 families that do not have access to the TK experience for their children in OUSD without going to a different school. MLA, Seed, and Manzanita also similarly positioned in terms of the number of TKs that they have relative to the number of K. That's another 118 students. And in district, I think it's now District 5, I don't know where that area, but Greenleaf is solidly in 6. Is Global in 5? 5. So that you could see that Global and Greenleaf have 1 TK, and that means that there's 95 students in that area that would be in a potential 6 TK based on proximity. Like, I was just kind of grouping schools together around what the potential is. So that gives you kind of an idea of where disproportionately schools don't have enough space to add TK because they're at full capacity right now.
I guess I have a question
Yeah.
about this slide, because I'm not understanding where you're getting the 3 classrooms from and the 1 classroom. So, because to me, that first group, 77, divided by 3. So that's 3 classrooms.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm totally sorry. That is, I did not explain that. That is the number of TK classrooms currently that are at a hub for those schools.
TK classroom.
Currently, right now. So
3 classes right now.
there is an active hub for Chabot and Hillcrest that has 3 classes in it currently. Those
And
numbers.
where is that?
Got it. So there are 3 hubs.
Yes. There are 3 locations that are serving as a hub right now.
And that's Kaiser, Burbank, and Hintel?
Kaiser,
side?
Burbank, and Intel.
Oh,
Yes.
got it. Okay.
So that is what, like, in terms of one of the questions that the board had asked is like, have we done this before? We are currently doing it. And we're doing it at Kaiser, Burbank, and Hintel, and those are the classes that are currently offered. Those 3 classes at Hillcrest and Chabot, I believe, I'm not exactly sure where they map to, but I just wanted to name that there are hubs in the district that have that configuration right now.
I believe the second grouping is at Hintel.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things to consider as we talk about our facilities, and part of the conversation we were having about like kind of the vision of the future, is we are a district with a significant special education population. And so I think building that in, and I would love to, help Jen get into those conversations, Jen Blake, right, to get into those conversations of like, as we're building these classrooms, as we're building these school sites, like, can we make sure that we're keeping that in mind as well? Because I want to make sure that like that is built into the future that we're thinking about, because that is our student population.
Yeah. Can I actually just this is one of the things that you'll see the next time we bring the Garfield project. That actually is one of the differences between a modernization and a rebuild. We actually did get to sit down with Jen Blake and talk to her about what the ideal TK progression would be at the school. So there's 2 progressions for special education students that is designed into the Garfield project that wouldn't be able to be done in a modernization, because the way that we staff schools today is dramatically different than what they were originally built. And so that is a variable that we can build into some of these designs. And so I should have mentioned that that is part of the Garfield, but it also should be part of the consideration around the TK hubs.
Yep. And last slide.
Yes. This is just what it like kind of, and this is where I'm going a little bit out of my current lane, but in the past when I was in the academic side. What's that? Oh, sure. I mean, I think that is the last slide. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand this chart.
Yep.
So, and trying to sort of synthesize it with some of the other information you provided. So if I'm looking at this and I see that there is TK potential of 118 students in group 5, right? And in an earlier slide, how do I reconcile that TK potential 118 with the number on a wait list for a TK spot in this area?
Got you. So MLA, Seed, and Manzanita, that group 5, there are potentially 5 TK classrooms that you could, with those school communities communicating out to their community about a hub that's opening nearby, you could potentially open up, that's why we're calling it potential, up to 5 classrooms, right? Those classrooms could serve all 3 of those schools. They don't have to be, I just conceptually in the hub as it's working out right now, it's not like there's a Greenleaf classroom or a global classroom. It is like they're intermixed with all of the different kids in up to 5 classrooms. So you would have MLA, Seed, and Manzanita families all together in mixed TK classrooms. And then the following year, they would transition into the kindergarten spaces at their schools.
Is it accurate to say that, so, sorry, just if we go back to slide 11, where you have the wait list numbers, where do those 108, like, who are those 118 students? Are they any of the same students or families on the wait list in districts 5, 6, and 7, for instance?
So,
And that's not the slide.
oh, that's not the.
That
yeah.
one.
So, okay, but it, just on the right.
Press in your microphone.
Yeah, I was trying to work back and forth with Director Barry. Okay, so on this slide right here, the same information here that you see on the right in the chart is graphically on the chart there, where you can see where the wait lists are on the image to the right. So you can see that those are where there are wait lists. Now, yep.
Does it satisfy a real demand to create a hub? Then, I guess is the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I got you.
You got me?
I totally got you. So like that top region, that is looking at family demand for getting into current hub or current TK opportunities at those schools. That's the wait list at the program that's there, right? So there's a, and we would need to survey relatively quickly to find out, would you be willing to move to a school that is 0.8 miles away if we could offer TK and you were guaranteed admission into your neighborhood school, right? So that is the part that is untested. I think what's different though is that in District 5, 6, and 7, and you all are right in there, there are many other ways that families are supporting their children when they're not in school during the 4-year-old age range, right? So what we're seeing is that like when Global Family has a TK classroom, it fills up. But once it's full, families have figured out other options. There would have to be a decision to say, hey, we're opening a hub, partner with the principal and with the school community, publicize it. This is the time frame. Like you would want to do that sometime in February. You would want to notify that we are doing this thing in February, because then there is outreach to change what the options are before families have made their commitment to what their child care needs are going to be. So the reason why we called it the TK potential, over time what we've noticed is that demand for TK continues to go up because there's a value proposition there, right? Wait a second. I can have extended care. I have a place that I can send my kid that might be connected to the school that I'm sending a sibling. It is also, there is multiple years now of literacy instruction with the Garfield. You can have pre-K, TK, and 2 years of schooling before you get into kindergarten, which is not historically what families have done. There's a value proposition around cost. There's a cost for your children in other types of care that families factor into decisions around whether or not to take TK or not. So there's just like I said, there's a multitude of factors that families choose in terms of their decision making. So there would definitely have to be a pretty significant engagement and outreach, but what we've noticed is that with our programs that have higher demand in terms of families are selecting that school, that as you build the programming that aligns to that, they do end up filling up.
I guess one question that's come up for me around this discussion is, so according to slide number 21, there are TK classrooms at all of these schools. So if, let's say, we were to move forward with a plan to create how many ever TK hubs we need to capture this enrollment, would, from a programmatic perspective and or facilities perspective, since you kind of are able to wear both hats, would a potential recommendation be taking all the TK classrooms that are currently at these school sites and moving all of them to the hubs. So that way, all of these schools have space for kinder through whatever grade level that they have? Or would it be to at least keep one and or two TK classrooms and build a hub? Because I guess my concern is just looking at MLA, all right, there's one TK and there's, you know, a lot more students that want to come. I almost don't want to create a big bubble of kinder that actually can't be absorbed by the campus because there's literally no physical space to absorb them.
That is, there's three ways I can answer that question. And it is definitely, it is parent, if you have made a determination of where you want to send your kid, and that is the school that you've picked in Oakland, you live in a particular area, this is the school you want. It might be, you heard at Garfield, like I went to school, like my, my mom was at the school, like there's a lot of history that's there. They absolutely prefer to have a TK on the campus with the school that they're going to go to, unequivocally, right? The second choice is to guarantee a spot at that school by going to a TK hub. And it's probably not clear on this, is that the Hillcrest and Chabot TKs are not on the campus.
Okay.
They are affiliated with the campus at a hub. So like that's the second piece. The third part of it is, this is where your long-term facilities master plan is, right? Right now, you don't have the time or the ability to change the footprint of, I'll just pick MLA, right? Because the Sherman campus has a space at the back of the campus that has three very old, outdated portables, right? They're well beyond their life. You could do a portable replacement at that spot and add 4 classrooms on the back and replace, with 4 portables that you could have TK embedded within the campus. But that's a longer term process than where we are now. And I think that's where your facilities master plan comes in, is that you want my staff and the planning side to be looking at those things and looking for opportunities to do that. As we spoke in the master plan, so that, like, I'm gonna pause right there. So like, it is a yes for now. You have extra capacity at spaces that is underutilized. You're paying for an administrator, you're paying for custodial, you're paying for nutrition services, you're paying for clerical staff at that site. By adding 4 more classrooms to that site under that same structure, you're getting all of the administrative supports that come with the school essentially at no cost, right? Because that same structure is the same whether you're a school of 200, a school of 400, you're just adding that in there. That's the cost savings that I would be talking to you about at Budget and Finance, right? So I think if I were there talking about this from a finance perspective, from an educational standpoint, you have solo TKs at some of these schools where they usually partner with the kindergarten teacher, but having a planning partner is always preferential, from a long-time teacher standpoint. I always love collaborating with somebody because they have great ideas that they bring to the table. So this is the now strategy, but then you can think about campuses if you decide. Los Angeles Unified, when they were back in 2000 and they had the same population boom that Oakland was having, they have a lot of early childhood centers that are huge, and they're closing a lot of those now because they have capacity at their school sites to move the early childhood onto the campuses. So different districts, how they're positioned, are using different strategies, and Oakland has to figure out what the Oakland strategy is.
Thank you. All right, let's get to the last slide. Because we do have, I think, 2 more items.
Yeah, the last slide is I didn't want to some of it is like just not talking about like just the academic program, that there are some academic programmatic things, that there's an instructional model that is probably best explained. It definitely is best explained by the early childhood team and Jessica Cannon. I just said that there are some required investments, like if you're going to do a TK hub. You would have to do some modernization around fixtures, restrooms, age-appropriate furniture, because it's not necessarily always the same. You can leverage the bond funds and different types of funds that you have to be able to do that so it doesn't impact the general fund. They're not actually short-term investments. These are long-term structural changes. So the thing that starts to cost you a lot of money is when you say, hey, this is going to be a TK hub. You have it for a TK hub, and you're like, oh, no, not really. We're actually going to do this other model. Like, that equivocation around these types of decisions costs you money every time you shift a programmatic decision for the site. And you would need to do some playground and TK yard adjustments. One of the things about TK is it's 4 to 5. So the requirements around play structures are actually, you can put smaller play structures on the ground that are easily put in place, and then you could have a long-term strategy that we would build into our playground strategy as well. So just that there are some definite facilities costs, and one of the things that the board would have to make a decision on is, what to do with a program at the site that is under capacity. Like, if you decided to build a TK hub, do you want to have that just be a standalone TK hub? It's not an actual closure. It is a grade span configuration change, right? So like, you say, hey, this is going to be just TK programming at this site. You're not actually closing the school, but you're changing the grade level configuration to just be dedicated to TK, and you can expand the size of the TK model at that site. So like, and that would be the example where you're like, we don't want any TK at the main campus. This is our hub, and it's going to have 12 classrooms that are all TK. There, you have choices.
But I guess just to that point, there is no, just for the public to understand, there is no use of our current bond dollars allocated at this moment towards TK hubs specifically as a strategy.
There is not currently, but there are areas within the bond that you could look to, particularly in B and J, but mostly J, that had similar aligned functions around transformation of campuses to support new board initiatives.
And there are other funding sources potentially that we could use as well, such as the developer fee that you mentioned, our friends at First Five, the Oakland Children's Initiative.
Yes, absolutely.
And others. Okay,
absolutely.
great.
And that is where that partnership is actually, I mean, it is a very good time to be talking about early childhood because of Measure C at the county level, Measure A at the city level. There are a lot of investments going into early childhood. So, and not to mention, I would just say TK is fully funded from the state of California with both. There's a TK allotment, not only for the actual LCFF dollars that come in to your general fund, but also the supports that provide additional staffing for TK.
Thank you. Any other questions, board colleagues, before we go to public comment on this item? Okay, public comment on this item, Mr. Hollis.
Yes, that is Asada Olukbala.
Sada, you got 2 minutes.
So I never take a report and accept it. I always look at the data, and the first thing I look is, when does the data created? So you have data that comes from 2020 and the census, and this is 2025. You have data on TK based on school year 24-25, not 25-26. So the data is questionable. I also look at what is being said about California in general. The birth rate for California is the lowest in the country. The outmigration for California is the highest in the country. A survey was done. The average Californian who has children, 4 out of 10 are saying that they're delaying having any more children based on cost of living, cost of housing. So it looks like you are dealing with a situation, unless Oakland is different, where we can project that the the actual number of children entering OUSD is going to be a lower number. And if it's going to be a lower number, why are we projecting that we should be expanding? We're also dealing with gentrification, where we do have a lot of young whites coming into the Oakland, but they are not choosing OUSD. And our highest group of people that we could possibly depend on is our Hispanic community. They are being challenged significantly to have the capacity to stay in this city. We have had 20,000 commercial trucking licenses revoked because they were here with expired visas. 250,000 IDs, what they call real IDs, are going to have to be resubmitted because the visas had expired. That group, people who are here without visas, are going to be challenged to stay in this state. So again, I'm saying, I don't know how we're projecting the possibility that we're going to see growth.
Thank you. All right, this is also not a voting item. So moving on to our next item, which is new business, which is G1 25-1251, which is the Facilities Committee Phase 1 Feasibility Study, Affordable Housing, Workforce Housing, Transitional Aged Youth, Housing Opportunities.
I believe we have a guest speaker on this one that is online.
Alrighty, guest speaker, go ahead.
Yeah.
I am online. Good evening, committee and community. I'm Pranita Ranvase, Executive Director for Facilities Planning. I'm sorry I'm not there in person and just recovering from a flu, but I'm happy to present this update to you all. This evening's item is an update only. We're not requesting any action tonight. The goal is to be able to provide updates on feasibility study for Phase 1 properties and the launch of Phase 2 initial property evaluations. This is part of our larger asset management and real property services planning process. All of the information that I will be presenting tonight is included in the memo. In the interest of time, I'll try my best to keep it brief. As a refresher, in September 2025, the board approved a resolution authorizing staff to launch Phase 1 feasibility study on 3 district-owned properties. This was a continuation on the asset management and real property services that we had already initiated and had identified 3 priority properties. The 3 properties are Lakeview at 746 Grand Avenue, former Ralph J. Bunch Academy at 1240 18th Street, and 1025 2nd Avenue. The resolution also authorized staff to begin the Phase 2 initial property valuations, similar to what was conducted for Phase 1. In terms of following the board resolution adoption, in terms of the scope of work with our partners, the board authorized an amendment to the agreement for professional services with Divine and Gong and Rivercrest Partners. I do have Chris online as well with me presenting tonight. Based on that approval in December, we have now formally launched the feasibility study. Just to go over what the feasibility study would include, it includes, as I mentioned, for a study for 3 properties. It includes technical due diligence, which would be around environmental or environmental study, geotechnical, utilities, structural. It would also include traffic and parking, slope grade, fire, life safety analysis. In terms of programming and design, it would include site use concepts, reuse and phasing options, as well as conduct an employee and market demand analysis. In terms of financial analysis, it would include cost modeling and operating performance, funding strategies, competitiveness for public funding. We would also be conducting community engagement and evaluation of interim use, which would be low-cost community uses while long-term planning efforts are underway. As part of the study, we will also be reviewing the T-Hub model and programming at each of these sites. For a high-level schedule update, staff is preparing to launch the technical due diligence in this month and next month. In February and March, we will conduct our programming and conceptual design and conduct a research and study for the T-Hub models that are already in the city and in and around the Bay Area as well. In April and May, we plan to have financial analysis and funding strategies. And in June, we will synthesize all of our findings and come back to present a final recommendation. The outcome of the feasibility study will be a report for each site, and we will continue to come to the facilities committee with periodic updates. That's for phase one. Now, for phase two, we will conduct a similar initial property evaluation as we did for the phase one properties. Phase two expands analysis of additional vacant properties that were part of our larger vacant properties assessment. As we did for phase one, where we narrowed down to 3 properties, staff will come with recommendations and some initial analysis for phase two properties and which properties can be considered for initial assessment. That's about all I was going to present in terms of just some high-level updates, and Chris and I are happy to take any questions you may have.
Director Barry? We can, if you'd like to. I guess I just had one question before we get to public comment and other board questions. So I'm looking at the phase one schedule and planning and also the phase two. From my understanding as the author of the feasibility study resolution, we are going to get all of this information in April. This now looks like, no, we're going to get it in June. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that a different understanding, or?
Yeah, I would defer to.
Yes, I think our goal was to try to get an initial assessment or analysis completed by the spring. I believe by the time we had the contract board approved with the reduced number of meetings in December, we were a little behind. But we will try to keep coming back to facilities committee with updates. So we're not holding all of the assessment until June. So you'll continue to have periodic updates throughout June.
Okay. That was my preliminary question. Director Barry, did you have a question?
Just how you all are thinking about the impact or the implications some of the potential outcomes of the feasibility study might have for asset management or facilities master plan.
Do you want to start and then I'll?
Yes, just to make sure I understand your question, just how we're aligning our outcomes and findings from the master plan with the asset management side of the
yes. So for
planning
instance,
universe?
We'll get information back regarding the feasibility of these 3 potential actions at these 3 sites. At that point, by June, you will have already shared outcomes of asset management and facilities master plan. And so there's obviously implications, and I'm just curious how you'll reconcile that.
Sure.
You go ahead and then I'll jump in.
Okay. So in terms of the master plan, our goal is to bring a draft master plan to you all in February, and then for a final board approval end of February and March. So I think by the time we get to synthesizing some of our analysis for the feasibility study, we'll already have our findings from the master plan to be able to inform the recommendations that are going to come through for the feasibility study. We are also launching our process. So through the master plan, that's your first initial planning tool, but through the master plan, we would also be launching several other planning efforts, including deferred maintenance planning, including an energy management plan, asset management plan, and the feasibility study. So if all of these would come kind of together to be able to help make more long-term decisions by June. And I don't know if that helps answer your question, but our findings from the master plan will help inform the asset management plan. Our finding from the feasibility studies will also help inform the asset management plan.
And do you mind if I add another piece? Like, I think there's the time that the board gets to see the information and the time that staff gets to see it to like kind of, to like we it's not like, so we have a comprehensive maintenance plan that needs to come forward after the master plan. We're analyzing the data right now that we were getting through the facilities master plan to talk to you about what are some potential issues that are going to be coming up. Like the same thing is true with asset management. We know from our past conversations with board and here in the facilities committee that there's a desire to start a non-public schools that are within OUSD. We are working on that asset management plan around which are the sites based on the facilities master plan data that we're getting would meet the criteria, and we have discussed, we've got information from non-public schools to see what types of facilities they would think of for a non-public school setting for them, right? So like TK Hubs is part of that. So I just would like, in terms of what you see at the board level that is coming forward, we are getting information in advance to put together the presentations, to put together the recommendations for you all. And that is coming in now and over that time period. It's when can we get you the actual document that's a voting document for you all. And so I think sometimes when when you're here and we're having these conversations with you, we are definitely tracking your guidance and feedback that is shaping that plan. And then we are using that to inform some of our decisions. So I did want to say, while there's a lot of things happening in parallel, there is a lot of overlap that staff is holding to look for those opportunities to build the overall plan.
Great. Director Thompson? Okay, public comment on this agenda item, Mr. Hollis?
Sara Olukbala.
2 minutes.
I continue to say this is not the time for this. Just to give you an example, the city of Oakland has determined that the police administration building is seismically unfit and is scheduled for demolition. And when it's demolished, affordable housing will take place, but they can't do it because the financial commitment is not there. And I say the financial commitment to everything that's going to be involved, you're not there at this point. So when you have a feasibility study, I just looked it up, you're going to be looking at the technical achievability of the project, the financial viability of the project, the environmental responsibilities related to the project, the legal compliance, the potential obstacles, the site conditions, the regulatory analysis has to, and they got some other stuff. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we are not in a position in this district to take on this type when we got so many other things. Then the possibility of developers. Developers want high potential return on their dollars. The cost of construction continues to go up. The challenge of finding people who are capable of doing construction work, that's declining. The governor has reduced his commitment from the budget for housing and homelessness by 56%. The possibility of any housing projects getting support from the state is very limited. The possibility of getting support from the federal government is extremely limited. So I just say, if I'm in a position right now to look at the young people that are going to get the benefit of this, and I don't think the length of time this is going to take to develop, you're not going to even be here when it finally comes to possibly happening.
Thank you. So that is all of the business that we have for new business. Then we move on to public comment on all non-agenda items with the subject matter jurisdiction of our committee, which is H1 26-0025. Oh, and then G1 was not a voting item. So, any public comment on this agenda item, Mr. Hollis?
Asada Olukbala and Jack Nelson.
Great. 2 minutes each.
So let me have my McClyman moment. McClyman's initial, we don't have any time, you guys. Okay. Meeting with the public. Introduced individuals. Bobbitt, Mr. Bobbitt, the guy who's buying the Coliseum, and a representative from Mate Nolly's office, committing to help us raise money for the project. They're going to work to raise money. And we not like these beautiful people here. We ask questions. And we determined that we needed to get you guys to commit, and we weren't going to raise money. And then we found out the project was a project for the no change orders. And then as we asked more and more questions, they stopped having the meetings. And then they start meeting with the teachers and some of the parents, but not myself and Miss. We were eliminated. Then they came out with a schedule for the summer that said we were going to do the turf field. Now the field is separate, and we were going to start the modernization and moved everybody to half of the building, and we haven't had anything since. So now we're saying, from a document I saw called Notice of Exemption, the project's going to start in February. Now, what makes you think you have the right to misuse somebody? This is almost like a domestic violence situation where you keep beating up on us and we're supposed to stay in a relationship. That's why I'm saying close the school. And nobody, believe me, there's nobody that's saying this but me, okay? Everybody wants to keep it open. But for me, I will not stay in a situation where you are disrespectful and you ignore the possibility of doing things right. And at some point you say, oh, now we're going to start. So I say, close the school if you can't do it right. And you haven't done it right. And I'll continue to say that. I'm sorry, Mr. Beam, I went over my time.
All right. First, an announcement. I made an error last night at the meeting. Tapscott's banner presentation will occur at 4 p.m. on the
4 p.m.
Saturday the 24th, 4 p.m. Sorry about that. I looked it up last night and I go, oh boy, I made a mistake. Funds allocation, I heard. I was known in San Leandro, I guess, for the small stuff, filling in, where I looked at, there was probably 100 things in the O's last night that money's coming in, and maybe you could mitigate it in some of these ways by raising money. I stole this idea from Castro Valley Battle of the Bands. We've got some good bands. We had a great band at our game, the Marchmen. One of them went to Skyline High. And you get a bunch of bands there and, you know, have security. You're not gonna lose out. You could have a volunteer fair with signups, and that would help if you identified your 2 and 3 year old, the kids, the parents with 2 and 3 year old kids, invite them for free. And that's a way to get them involved in the schools, because you're talking about, Preston's talking about keeping these getting the parents into the schools and then staying there. Funding, it seems, you know, my stuff is smaller stuff, but the Skyline High Dance Program, was 1/3 of it was funded by me picking up bottles last year and recycling them. That is hard to believe, but it's true. Number 4, wish me luck. My next project that I'm starting on now that supposedly this is going to happen. Oh, I'm done, huh? Supposedly this is going to happen the 28th, I'm understanding from Superintendent Sadler. Is that
I will ask the board president.
okay?
Because that was a question I had. I saw it in a document, and I wanted to make sure we were ready. But I
okay.
believe it is the 28th.
Yeah,
but I will confirm
that-
with the board
that-
president.
That the Beam family was coming down. That's what Superintendent Sadler said. But my last thing, I'll do it quick, is NVIDIA. I got 3 cousins that work at NVIDIA, and I'm going to ask them, not them, I'm going to go in without that knowledge. I'm going to try to get a meeting with Jensen Wang and with Casey Adams, with Sean Colas, with Principal Blasher from Castlemont, with hopefully somebody from McClymonds, and I'm going to ask them for $75,000, which would be the most that I've ever pulled in. And I'll tell you, one of my hooks is going to be teachers are worried about AI. So this would be a way for you to promote your program within the Bay Area. And wish me luck. $5,000.
Yeah. Thank you for all you do for our schools. Thank you so much.
I'm always thinking about stuff, you know.
I
just
appreciate
always-
you. Yeah.
Always thinking of ways we can do things here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Small time, but maybe I'll hit the big one.
Alrighty, so now we're at I, which is introduction of new legislative matters. Is there an introduction of any new legislative matters?
No public commenters for this item, Chair.
Going twice. Great. With that, we will adjourn. And hope you feel better, Ms. Rambase. And we will see you next week.